So ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome to the Smart City Revolution panel. In the next 60 minutes or so, we're going to discuss a very exciting topic, and then a topic that is relevant to every and each one of us, which is how we're going to live our lives and how we're going to work in the cities of the future. Today, we have a truly outstanding and a very diverse group of panelists. So first, let me quickly introduce the panelists. So to my right, clockwise, we have Mr. Alex Molinaroli, the chairman and CEO of Johnson Controls. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And then Ms. Sandra Wu. She's the chairperson and CEO of Kokusai, Kogyo.
Good.
I got that right. Mr. Jiren, the chairman and CEO of Neusoft, who develops software systems for many smart cities. Mr. Nick Allen, who is the non-executive chairman of Link Real Estate Investment Trust, who develops a lot of shopping malls for our cities in this part of the world. And last but not least, Mr. Thaddeus Arroyo, the CEO of Business Solutions and International from AT&T. Obviously, one of the largest telecom providers that make smart cities possible. So first, I'd like to spend just a couple minutes to set the stage about what we mean by smart cities. Just a couple months ago, Bain company published a white paper that's named Spatial Economics, in which we predicted that the cost of distance will decline sharply in the next 2 decades, which really impact the way we live our lives and the way we work. And the catalyst to this historic shift is really enabled by an array of new platform technologies. Just to name a few, we will have ubiquitous connectivity driven by telecom and Internet of Things. The last mile delivery cost will decline dramatically, driven by autonomous vehicles and delivery drones. We will have finally affordable household or individual robotics enabled by technologies like cognition and dexterities. We'll have decreasing minimum skill points in all kinds of retail businesses, so that a retail shop or a restaurant can serve a much bigger radius of consumers, enabled by technologies like big data, 3D printing. So the results of all of this is that we will see more and more people moving outside of the city centers and to live in the suburbs or exurbs or the new villages. Case in point, just in the United States, in the past 10 years, about 2% of all the population in the US have moved out of the 10 kilometers or 10 miles from a city hall of a major metropolitan area. And in the next 15, 20 years, we predict there will be about 10% of population move out of these city centers. So with that quick setup, let's turn to our distinguished panelists. And I would like to start from Alex here. Alex, obviously your company, Johnson Controls, offers a wide array of technologies to make this all possible. So maybe very briefly, if you can talk about how your organization is bringing all these technologies to life, and what are the biggest challenges that you face in this whole process?
Well, I think that this topic of smart cities is an abstract to many people. It's an amorphous. It's not tangible until you start understanding what problems you're trying to solve, and then you take this down to the problem level and And then you say, okay, well, how does technology enable that? But a lot of times when we talk about smart cities, it's very hard to get your head wrapped around what that really means. And so from our perspective at Johnson Controls, we're in the environmental business, the saving energy business, the making buildings and making transportation more efficient. We're also in the security business, and we're in the business of being able to bring technology to make your life a little more simple. But for me, my entire perspective around this is that if you look at a city, or if you want to say a building, or if you look at transportation, there's a tremendous amount of waste. And if you're able to take the waste out of that process, and that process could be the supply chain, it could be food, it could be energy, it could be water, it could be the transportation. We talk about the sharing economy. All these technologies are going to allow us to take a tremendous amount of waste out of the system to be able to do more with less. And I think that for whatever your purpose is, this idea of a smart city is something that needs to be enabled. For Johnson Controls, it's enabled by making the devices that we provide smart, making them capable, and making them able to connect to a different purpose. Because as you start talking to the different panelists, or talking to people in the audience, or just any individual, and they talk about a smart city, they're actually going to give you a different perspective. And it's not a wrong perspective, it's a different perspective. And I think that perspective is one that you have to talk to the different constituents and try to find out what problem you're solving. And for Johnson Controls, if it's around energy, the environment, efficient and effective transportation, more effective use of space, this is, for us, this is the domain in which we serve a smart city.
As you bring these services, what are the biggest challenges that you face today?
Well, the biggest challenge is that technology is moving faster than we can move. I mean, I can promise you that this conversation that we're having today, we had this 6 months ago. In fact, in Davos, I was part of the conversation, that technology has already moved. The idea of what's possible has moved. And this conversation around artificial intelligence and what is it really and what can it do? I actually think that people are just getting their head wrapped around what are the technologies. And so I think that very often you've got this reluctance to move because technology keeps moving ahead. And I think what's probably most important is that you need to do something. You can't wait. And you need to make sure that you can't future-proof, but you get engaged in the conversation and understand that a lot of the paradigms that we have, wherever we're coming from, are being shattered and rebuilt, and shattered and rebuilt. And so the most important thing is to make sure that you build smarts into what you do, so that you have the opportunity, making sure things are connected, to be able to take advantage of all the things that our mind probably can't even get around what those opportunities are.
Got it. So we may come back and talk about what are the technologies 6 months from now. I know AI is a big topic right now, but as you say, it may change in 6 months. Sandra, your company offers a wide range of services on this topic. So do you mind just sharing what exactly do you do, and also some challenges that you see?
Yes, thank you, Weiwen. Yes, today I think I will share our experience and all the challenge that we have, in not just only in Japan, but also in worldwide, especially like a developing country. But Kokusai Kogyo, we're celebrating 70 years anniversary today, and we started as a data or map producing company. To today, we provide a solution, holistic solutions, services to city government. And we also invest by ourselves to the renewable energy as well as the smart city as well. We have lots of investment or services that I can mention, but I would like to focus on 3 things that we really work very hard these days. First is we're pretty focused on the global agenda, the sustainable development goal, as well as the climate change. So we've worked very long together with the city and the urban, the government. But this day, we really address those safety, sustainability, and the resilience issues. So for the climate change, we work from renewable energy, not just only the power generation from all those smart grid preservation, to the response, the adaptation. So we have a lot of solutions or services, which is on the disaster risk reduction, as well as those simulations. We utilize the GPS, sensor, and cloud-based totally together to provide a service on monitoring and observation of the city or those disaster-prone area. And this day, our recent achievement is we just developed with our partner, I think the first in the world, the real-time tsunami, which can predict, calculate 30 minutes, within 30 minutes right after the earthquake occurred. And the second is I want to emphasize the maintenance. Maintenance is very important because maintenance actually to help to reduce your life cycle cost. So we utilize lots of those, for example, like a drone, sensor, or even the aircraft, etc., to provide the maintenance. But more important is this can really help to accelerate or to make sure the real economic growth. Because if you have a very bad infrastructure, no matter it's road or railway, etc., all the development growth, if develop it in decades, probably you just wash it away overnight. And the third thing is very important is we shall never forget about the people center. So it's a livable city is very important. So we also, this day, we focus on the infrastructure, we focus on both hot side and soft side, but this one is more people attached. For example, recently, we already applied in 9 prefectures in Japan as emergency medical service support. We call it MAFIS, it's Medical Facility Support System. So it helps to shorten the time to the patient transport and work together with the ambulance. And after 30 years, they keep all the record by the prefecture. Recently, can increase to find the proper hospital in the first contact is raised from 79% to 85%. This is a very impressive figures. Of course, a lot like mentioned about transportation, those EV map, this is something the smart city is very crucial these days. So lots of this kind of the solution, I would like to say, is not new. And those technologies always there. But most important is how you combine them together and make it, how to provide it through the new business model or new way to provide. And you have to look at your end user is the clients, is the citizen, not just only the government or not just only the corporate. I'll stop here.
Great, thank you. If I may just jump around a little bit and go to Thaddeus, I understand that AT&T has had a lot of advancements in working with the governments in these public and private partnership. Do you mind just sharing some examples of that and also the challenges that you see when working with the public sector?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I even raise it up a level, I think, where we stand here today, and then walk to some of the examples where we're seeing this come to fruition. First, I think we stand here at a unique period, because I think what we're seeing here is some of the convergent capabilities that you discussed is really moving us into this era where this transformation becomes execution of building these capabilities, whether you look at governments, whether you look at cities, or whether you look at businesses, that for the first time moves beyond theoretical capabilities into the application of what exists today. And in very simple terms, we have now this ubiquitous, high-speed mobile connectivity pervasively available around the globe. We have now the availability of sensors, low cost, low power, long life, that now when you connect with this capability of wireless connectivity and reaching what is now ubiquitously available compute from the cloud, you can empower all of these smart objects with intelligence and now begin this journey that leads to enabling new capabilities for cities, businesses, and others. And as we look towards that, the approach that we had taken in this domain for some time. And I look back, as we began our journey a decade ago, well, we didn't call it Internet of Things and the set of solutions and verticals that we enable today. This all began with just looking at emerging devices and emerging capabilities that today are real. And so as we look towards these, we began building verticals that begin enabling connected cars, connected fleets, connected homes, and then moving beyond that, very specific applications around connected medical technologies. But in 2015, we specifically stood up for cities, a dedicated organization under our IoT vertical organization, to begin looking at what is the future of a connected city and how do we bring that to life. And then I'll look at what I think becomes the anchor tenant. But a lot of that evolved is looking at what is the difference that these convergent technologies can bring that we can apply today. And I think as we get into the next phase, we'll talk about what comes next to begin to improve the security of a city, to improve the engagement of citizens, and importantly here, to improve the efficiency and sustainability and everything around it for cities. And as we looked at that, we began enabling a number of applications. And the approach that we took is we have today 8 spotlight cities across the United States that we consider real laboratories for building, and not testing, but building scaled applications as simple as smart lighting. And smart lighting begins with obviously more efficient use and being able to, of ultimately the lighting infrastructure, but being able to detect and predict when a light's gonna fail, which enhances security, reducing the consumption. But as soon as you do that, now we've built a fabric and connectivity that the same communications platforms and nodes that we use to support smart lighting now are enabling a whole set of applications for that city that allow us to put in place air quality detectors, traffic monitoring capabilities through video capabilities, to be able to drive new applications and helping to support citizens. But importantly, they go as far as putting in place gunshot detectors. And this ties into when I talk about the concept of now this public-private engagement. Because as this converges now with what comes next in the anchor tenant, much of this, beyond just citizen support, really comes down to improving public safety. And as we look towards that, and we like to look at that saying that public safety is the anchor tenant for much of what we do. But all these capabilities that I just described, when you converge it with that, we think will become transformational into the future of what a modern city looks like. So the specific example I think that you were referencing is that the United States government has contracted with us to build the first ever in the United States mobile broadband network for first responders. So what that really means is building the capabilities, the same kind of capabilities that we as citizens all rely on, but bringing that across the United States in a consistent fashion so that we can bring those same advanced capabilities to firefighters, to police officers and medical response personnel, and begin enabling an entirely new set of capabilities that helps save lives, helps make these departments more efficient. But now when you just think about the ability then, as we move forward with this, to connect it with everything else that we're managing here. I mentioned simple gunshot detector sensors. I mentioned the ability to have camera. So to be able now to take an emergency response call in real time and be able to correlate it to the area where the report was actually issued, and determine whether or not something really did occur there, and look at the camera, but more importantly now, to make our police officers safer, because now those sensors are in what they wear, on their holsters and their guns. And for firefighters, as firefighters arrive at the scene, they can send up an equipped drone and look at, before they send a firefighter in, at the conditions of the building. But not only are they seeing it, but the city command center can see it. That's the reality of what these capabilities we build are, and the reality of now, it's only what we've envisioned today is the obvious cases, so that when a police officer releases just the snap from their holster, it notifies police officers around them. That's the benefit of a connected society, a connected city. And now as we look at this, the public safety, as that anchor tenant for driving the next generation. And I think we'll talk more about this here and what comes next.
Yep. Thank you. I think the ubiquitous connectivity does bring a lot of benefits. But I'd like to come back to Mr. Liu. Neusoft provides a lot of software solutions to the cities and to the private sector. Just on the topic, the opposite side of this benefit is the public data safety, right, or security. So maybe, Mr. Liu, you can comment a bit on what Neusoft has been doing with the cities, and then specifically on this challenge around the data security.
Okay.
Thank you.
Neusoft is a software and IT services provider. Smart city is our business. We developed a lot of solutions for the city, like population management, natural resources management, like traffic management, healthcare, and even government administration. A lot of solutions which help the city become smarter and more efficient. So especially we talking about healthcare is one of, I think it's not only smarter, it's a big transformation. Before the healthcare, the people come to big hospital. So we try to use IT technology, like more and more services from hospital to be home. From, like a doctor, individual, they can direct have a talk, and like all the hospital can connect each other. They share same record of their patient, and especially when they use IoT technology, they can connect more information about the lifestyle information of each of the individuals. That'd be great help, like healthcare from treatment to be more preventive, especially for aging population, aging society of this country. That will be help government to reduce a lot of costs for healthcare. Of course, talking about the security, that is a big challenge, especially for privacy. Today, if we're talking about smart, that smart is not only be some kind from an investor. Most of smart is because individual contribute a lot of data. Every day we contribute our GPS location information. We contribute our personal lifestyle information. Every people wear more and more wearable devices, which is connect, and also the cost is very low. I think it's a totally change the traditional concept. We come to cyber society. So that is a kind of a new governance. That is a challenge to the government also, because if you don't sharing your information, you are not convenient. Today you pay by credit card, by mobile phone. You want to call Ubers, and you're sharing a mobile phone. If you don't tell your location, you cannot access the service. So security is not an issue about technology. It's a new governance. It's a new concept. It's not for that. Because cyber society is, you must identify each of individuals. So what it means trust in the cyber, the network, in a network. It's not in real world you can check. We very much use it those kind of way. But in cyber society, so the people need to build, your new identify, your new the record. So I think that is why people talking more and more like blockchain, talking about what is a governance of those kind of society. I think security, of course, is a big issue because it's new, because nobody understands what happens in future. Maybe that is kind of, digital world, maybe a kind of, especially if we're talking about cash, more and more, cash, because we call IPO now, some we call ICO. The coin can be trading, can be IPO. So that is everything new. I think that is a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. We may come back to that specific point. Nick, do you mind also sharing what your organization is helping make cities smarter and?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm in the fortunate position that I'm living in, a very high-rise, overcrowded city that is Hong Kong. So when one talks about smart city issues, it very much comes immediately home to me. People won't know Link, but Link REIT, we manage $22 billion worth of retail bricks and mortar assets, primarily in Hong Kong. When anybody says you've got that much bricks and mortar, they say, oh my God, e-commerce is going to take your lunch. Why are you still in that business? And so you do need to drill down and understand what retail is like in big cities and how it will be affected by smart city initiatives. And the couple of points that I wanted to share is that our assets in Hong Kong are almost predominantly located in affordable housing projects in Hong Kong. So people move through, when they get up in the morning, through our retail facilities and go off to usually to the mass transit station. And that is a very different environment than you see elsewhere. So the point that I wanted to make is that when you look at the demographics and you use big data to look at the demographics of the people who shop in your bricks and mortar, what we see in those assets that we manage is a greying society. And so that group of people is getting older. And so one of the big challenges you have, as I listen fascinated to the technological developments that are being made, that when your group of people are becoming 50 and 60 and 70 and 80 and 90, their ability to interact with some of the technologies that are seen to be coming is a bit of a challenge. And therefore, the challenge for me is how you manage those intergenerational markets in terms of the technology that you introduce in your retail. And I think the other key point I would make is almost no matter what you do, government policy is absolutely critical in moving forward to achieve smart city improvements. And for me, the issue is not about when we build a new shopping mall, because we can make it very green and we can finance it with a green bond and we can make it LEED Platinum. The challenge is the existing stock of 200 assets that we have that were built in the 70s and the 80s in affordable housing projects, and how do you move forward with those sorts of challenges to make it a smarter city. And you need municipal governments that are able to bring a community together and say to certain parts of the community, I'm afraid you're going to miss out on this one for the greater good, and that is always a big challenge for government. So those are the key challenges. It's the demographics and it's the government policy, which are quite critical in being able to move forward on smart cities.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. At this point, I'd like to open up to the floor. We would like to make it a very interactive session. Just to set the ground rule, so when you raise your hand, I'll call your name, and please quickly state your name and organization, and then shoot your question. So no speech. That's allowed. Who would like to have the first question to the panelists here? Looks like the audience still needs a little bit of a warm-up. Yes, the gentleman. Yeah. Please.
My name is Marabi Tseho. I'm of J&J Group, which is an investment company in South Africa. Now, from talks of smart cities, I get the impression that it's more focused on retail and healthcare. But how will smart cities improve education and all the other systems other than retail and retail and healthcare? Thank you.
Anyone would like to take a shot?
Yeah, well, I think I'll start and I'll let others add, because I think as you look at this and you look at the potential for everything that we've been discussing now to impact other elements of society, it's critical. And I'll move beyond just when we talk about healthcare and retail. When you start looking at now what a connected city can do, it moves even into infrastructure and even addressing areas as it relates, for example, to aging infrastructure. There's nothing better to do to buy and manage through this experience when you can censor and manage, for example, detection and aging water systems, leakage, and things of that nature. You can equally apply that to education. If you think about the ability to reach an extended population, using digital capabilities and extend and reach a much larger audience through, frankly, the capabilities that we have in place today using remote learning, and extend your existing educational system in a city through digital mobile technologies. It's pervasive now. The number of people and things connected in the world exceed the population of the planet. There clearly are groups that we have to continue to bring in, but the basic capabilities are there. What cities have to do, what governments have to do, and I believe, frankly, communities, is looking at how we tap into what may be overworked, overloaded capabilities in existing education systems and use the digital means that we have now to reach those extended communities and ultimately begin to solve some of those problems. So the same technologies that we're using to improve the lives of citizens in terms of their day-to-day lives and safety and security, tapping into that same technology is a way to us embrace digital to transform education.
If I just jump in on this, the idea of education, it's a very profound question, because it's not only what's going to happen around technology, but the dislocation of people because of these technologies is going to be so much more important to change the idea of what the paradigm of what education is, because education today is a mindset that you're going to go you're going to go to school, you have your curriculum, and you're going to do this in a very traditional way. You think about some experiments that are happening out there today. Think about Khan Academy. Just think about the ability to educate across boundaries and to make sure that education is a life learning opportunity. It's going to require us to be able to redefine for ourselves what we accept as education. But I think the technology already exists. I think that the policies haven't caught up with the technology. And I think that this whole change in how we're going to operate in our lives and all the positives that are going to come from this are also going to dislocate so many people. And so this idea of education is going to be incredibly important. And I think that it exists, the technology exists. I'm not sure that we have the policies that are keeping up with the technology.
Mr. Liu, you have it?
At Neusoft on 3 universities, we have 37,000 students studying our university now. And we did that is, firstly, if we're talking about education today, the roles of a teacher already totally disruptive because before they taught something they knew, but today it's very hard because everybody knows. Everybody knew the knowledge. The teaching, the process is cannot just taught something because you can Google, you can Baidu, you can got everything. So that means the smart city for smart education means we must have a new platform, like a teacher, professor become the knowledge integrator. It's not only just bypass some information from one hand to another hand. So that way, that means we need a new platform. It's a cyber, it's a new education platform. That's one. Secondly, if we're talking about education, its job is a big shift. And before we're teaching something, and then we think that kind of knowledge can support young people working for 5 years. But today, when you come to university, the first day, you learn something, maybe never be used again after 4 years. So that means the learning cycle becomes shortened, and also, so how to the teaching student, like him, to have an opportunity to become more innovative. So that is another big impact to education system. So we did is we build a platform, like most students starting their startup company when you come to our university. We have few hundred small company. It's for students, they use our internet. We have a lot of new things, like AI, like IoT, something, like student to know what is happen in the future. Like him to learn not only knowledge, like him to understand what is the trends of the future. It's key for education, like city of Dalian, it's very smart. I think in 15 years ago, this city, every university starting have a software college. Everyone, even foreign language university, they also have a software college. So that means make this city that become a booming for talent in digital technology. Already offer from that time a few thousand people working on software, but now 200,000 people working for software industry. It's because digital technology drive the transformation of education and also offer more and more big opportunity for the young people staying here and then value their career.
I like to add, Bain also did some very interesting work in the digital education space, right? So when you talk about, Alex talked about the traditional education where, you have to be, the student has to be in a physical location and seeing the teacher face to face. Now the technology is enabling, especially the millennial parents, they grew up with internet, right? Now, even if these people live in a remote city, right, a small city who don't have access to the best teaching credentials, teachers, they can get online and receive the best teachers in their living room, right? So that is transforming the way people receive education. So any other, this lady right here? Yes, it's you. Just 1 second.
Yeah. My question is that obviously a smart city needs a lot of technologies from foreign companies like you, like AT&T, like Johnson Controls, etc. But it's still it's very difficult for foreign companies to operate in China because of a culture difference, because of regulation. So how do you face these kind of problems?
I guess this addressing to most,
Not me.
with the exception of Mr. Liu.
Yeah.
So, well, Hong Kong is part of China, so.
I mean, I'll start. From my viewpoint, is you have to accept the rules as what they are. But in order to be successful in China, and Johnson Controls has been in China for quite some time, in many businesses, and what we've learned is that you just can't bring whatever the way you believe the world should work from North America or from Europe. You have to show up. You have to be a part of the community. You have to be as local as you can. And then you do have, where you have disadvantages, you also have advantages because you are able to bring some best practices and experiences to bear. And I think that's appreciated. I think for all the challenges that come with being in the market, there's also opportunities that come from being a multinational company. From my experience, you do have to accept certain realities, but you also have to realize that you can exploit some strengths, and you have to be willing to change your business model. You can't bring the business model that you're used to China and expect that it's going to work. I think you learn that either the hard way or the easy way. I tend to learn things the hard way, but from my experience and experiences of people before me, we've been successful in China because we have been here.
Sandra, do you do business in China or no?
Not
Not
really.
yet.
Not
Okay,
really.
why not?
We have the project. We did a lot of project in China. Doing project and you have your own presence in China is different. But regarding this, I would like to say something is, I think it's not just only in China. Doing business in foreign countries is never easy. Well, for those big organizations, especially the global company, they've been there for a long time. It takes them probably in many decades to build the network or the globalization presence, the global presence today. But for just a local company, domestic company, or regional company, if you want to do the business in the foreign country, never easy. But I agree with Alex, is you have to accept, you have to meld into the society. But Well, one thing is, I think it's very important to have a right partnership with the local company. And then second is very important, you have to be very local, you have to do the localization. I'm very impressed by lots of US company. They really implement the localization pretty well all over the world. So I think it's not just only in China, in many parts of the world.
So Thaddeus is a, I guess, US originated company.
Right. Well, as a global communications company,
Yeah.
you know, we had to cross this chasm many years ago. You look at it, we serve, in my organization, 3.5 million businesses in over 200 countries, and China is one of them. In fact, it's among the largest as we connect businesses that need to do business in China. So our approach to take is we manage and solve for the priority that we set, which is providing solutions for companies wherever they are in doing business in China, is finding the path to do it. And so in China, for us, it's been a path of collaboration. We have collaboration in place today in long-term strategic relationships with players that allow us to operate in this market in multiple means. And in a digital world, those capabilities are becoming more and more in demand. And I think as we look toward the market and we look toward our ability to serve our customers, the needs that they have to interconnect wherever they do business are only growing. So we're excited about the market. This is one of our most important ones. But I think as we look towards the approach to serving it, we take an approach of not just interconnecting and finding collaboration, but also building infrastructure in those countries in the terms of our people and the talent that we have. We have employees across China where we need them to support our business customers. And interestingly enough, I also view that as much as an opportunity, because if I look at the next wave, if we look at the decades ahead, I think you'll see, instead of just West moving East, you'll see East moving West, and companies from China expanding in the rest of the world, and we hope to meet their needs. And so I think it creates, if you invest early, it creates as much of an opportunity to provide those solutions to now Chinese companies that want to begin expanding internationally.
Also,
Mr. Liu,
I think if we're talking about the smarter, smart means more openness, more connected. And I just give you 2 examples about what it means. You know, any of the city cannot isolate. It must be open, must be connected. Today, every day, many of Chinese children learn English in internet. The teachers from Canada, from the US, many of volunteer in there, and it build a very good connection. But recently, a lot more and more healthcare, especially in diagnostic. Many of Chinese patients, they ask how to get a solution. They contact with a doctor in US, in Japan. You know, Japan also. A lot of Chinese come to Japan have a health check. So that means if you become smarter, you cannot be just look at your city. You cannot only look at your nation. You must look at resources in worldwide. So more knowledge, more resources. I think that is the world today. So I don't think any kind of regulation, any kind of restriction can restrict this world become more connected. So only limited is our mind. Our own, ourselves, because we don't understand another side, we cannot find a partner, we don't know how to sharing with others. So that is a challenge to ourselves.
So in Mr. Liu's definition, the cities are really talking about the international city definition.
Especially if a small town, small city, you want to be smart. You cannot be only say everything in that small city. So that smart is because you can absorb knowledge, resources, and expert talent, and especially in cyber society, easy than your normal way.
Yes. Cool. Any questions from? Okay, gentleman here.
Dear Weiwen,
Sorry.
the other side.
Hi, my name's Kelvin, and I'm from Shanghai Media Group. Smart city requires for big data, but as we all know that most of the data is controlled by government and the big companies who have a lot of sensors. citizens and the small business entrepreneurs are calling for open data. So what do you think of open data while building smart city? And will you, as big companies, open your data, and how? Thanks.
Open data. So who's got the most data in this room?
I think I'm most related like you.
Sandra, you want to start? Go ahead.
Well, the company like us in our industry, GIS and data company, we work very closely with those UN as well as the government as well. We talk about a lot about how to make this open data more applicable and reachable. Is a lot of the developed country, I don't say all, but have idea of NSDI, National Special Data Infrastructure. And not all, but some of them is open for the citizen or for the corporate and can be commercial, have the commercial used. But I have to say that most of the developing country still a lack of those, not even the NSDA, the data infrastructure. They don't even have the basic map, I think if, for example, even the smart city or some countries in Asia talking about the smart nation initiative, which is very attractive. But they have to start not from the surface. They have to start from the very fundamental things, the basic map. Information. You have to produce, you have to collect the data, and you have to update regularly. So, and then without have those proper collection and accumulation and management, sometimes I think it's even dangerous to just disclose or open the data to all. So I think for the government, I would say that I would encourage the government, especially, well, not just only in developing countries at all, is you must have this basic information, the basic map. And start from them, and you will step by step decide what kind of the data you can open to your citizen or the corporate to use.
So who should be making that decision?
Well, from our experience, we think that government should take the lead to provide that basic map.
So the government should make that decision.
Definitely. Government has to take the lead, but can mobilize the private sector's ability to produce the map or collecting the data. But government need to, I think government need to control it or manage it properly to do that. So from our experience, I think this is the first step, need the government to take this initiative.
Does any other panelists agree that the government should play that role?
Firstly, I think when we're talking about smart city, we should say without open data, city cannot be smart.
Yeah.
The reason is without data, you don't know how to manage the city. You cannot make more efficiency. But if you look at the many cities in China, the government already understood the data of city is a wealth, is a kind of platform. So they're starting to open. Like a Neusoft, we provide in this country 50% social insurance. The platform is developed by us. That means half of population, the payer data is supported by our system. We exactly know what is, how much, what kind of diseases, which hospital charges, same kind of diseases, what is the big difference, who is who, and also 30% of hospital use our IT, so we know what is the difference operation of the hospital. But if you look at what is the demand of a government, one, they want to control the cost. Without open the data, they cannot control. Two, they want more the services from a big hospital to big community to be home. Without open that data, you don't know who is who. You don't know how to arrange, how to make those kind of, the different layer of services become more efficiency. So that means open the data to the city, to third party. It's not option. It's a future issue change. It's the only way is how to open, how to manage that data, not disclose private.
I agree 100%. I think that what will happen is that cities or whatever, we're talking about cities, so we'll keep it that framework, in order to compete for people, for resources, in order to be efficient, everyone's going to go to the mean, and whatever is required in order for the for the cities to be more efficient, effective, productive, sustainable, and if it requires more open data, then there'll be so much pressure that we'll drive to that place. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, I think it's absolutely critical. I think that's what will separate cities that get smart from cities that don't get smart, is the ability of government to put through policy to have that data out there and be shared, because cities that don't do it are going to be left well behind cities that do it well.
So I think that's an important area. I mean, I think the policy side of this has been well discussed, so I'll leave what's been put on the table. And I think it's an important element, and it's an important element of sovereignty relative to where that policy is being developed. And it's always going to be a complicated issue, and it's not going to be a bright line. But as you look at businesses, we have a tremendous incentive to obviously manage that within the framework that we're dealing with, but also really add, the only other element that we really haven't discussed here is this concept of transparency, because I think that's a very important attribute as we look at, beyond the policy implications, and obviously all of us around this table have to adhere to the policies of every country we do business in, and so those policies that drive and create this opportunity for innovation are important. But transparency, whether it's transparency of the businesses and what we do with that data, or transparency of governments, is also an extremely important element to really create that ability to communicate and build trust.
Yep. I think we have time for the last question. Maybe the gentleman at the back.
He's been there for quite a long time.
Thank you so much. My name is Kishi. I'm from the Mori building from Japan. We invested in Dalian and Shanghai for more than 20 years. So my question is, for all of you, who is responsible in the future to keep the city smart? Because now we are always thinking about using updated technology. Now, even our company built the building in Dalian 20 years ago. But we had no idea about cyber security at that time, and now we have a lot of cyber security. But in terms of the city, who's going to be the responsible to update all the technology stuff to keep the city smart? This is my question. What do you think
Maybe
about
a short response from
the city? Probably so. You say government, or it depends on policy, or so. Basically, my personal question is, who's going to be the responsible to keep this
really fast here? I'm sure that you have a real knowledge, but I think that this whole infrastructure will become a utility into itself. How that layers, I honestly don't know. I think you probably have more experience than I do, but there's a whole new utility that's being built here.
I mean, when you build a new building, it takes you 2 or 3 years. The last thing you do is put in the technology. So if you're putting the car park underneath, the last thing you do is put in whether you stack cars, how they're going to be directed around, because technology is changing so fast that even if you put things in a year ahead of time, the chances are that when you finish the building, it's out of date. So the idea that you can have such a clear pathway of technology isn't really practical. And for me, you get right back into who runs cities and who's accountable for running cities, and what the politics are of running cities, and what the universal suffrage is in running cities.
My answer to the question is definitely everyone, because we all live in the city, and we are all the stakeholders, but we all have our role to play. So this must be a very inclusive activity. To everybody have a responsibility to keep the city smart and green and sustainable. I think government will provide the ground rule, the fundamental, the basement, and the stakeholders, the corporate, academy, or the NGO, we all have a role to play, to make profit, to build a city, to give the opinion, to do the research. And the people living in the city, we are definitely the one. We put our eyes on everything, and we live in there, and we give our opinion to improve the whole city and make sure it's going smarter and smarter.
Cool. So we are coming to the end of this session, but I'd like to ask my colleagues here for each of you to maybe just provide one sentence that you would like the audience and also audience on the TV to take away from this discussion. So maybe this time around we'll start from Thaddeus and then go counterclockwise.
Very good. Well, I think if you look at this, I think one of the obvious things is it's here and now, and the capabilities are there. But what I want to leave this group with is that we're right at the forefront of another wave with the advent now of the next generation of technology with 5G and beyond. The new capabilities that we will bring will drive this next wave of keeping this evergreen. There is no end state, but the next wave is right in front of us, and I think it's exciting to think about what the future of the smart city will be.
Thank you.
And we haven't really touched upon energy and just the whole area of electric vehicles and distributed generation are going to be very transformational as well. And you know, driverless cars is 10 times less cars on the road, and what that will mean for cities. So the whole energy piece, bringing down carbon emissions and pollution, is really exciting and very much at the forefront today.
Yeah, Mr. Liu?
Our knowledge and our capability cannot support us to imagine what happens in the future, that society becomes so smart. Because so far we already lose control something more and more. So that means we must keep to learn more curious about this new world. So I think it's a big opportunity and also big challenge to us in the future.
Thank you.
As the title of our section, Smart City Revolution, I think it's keep on doing the revolution by implementing the innovation, which is important. And the renovation is you have to say goodbye to the past and look in the future.
I think that for me, the things that we've come to expect in the virtual world that we can do with online shopping, learning, all the different things that we are now accepting, that virtual world will extend to the physical world. And that as the virtual world extends to the physical world, it's going to change our lives dramatically. And I think that we're going to have to be willing to accept the things that we accept in the virtual world when we're using our phone or using our computer with the same reality in the physical world. And it's going to be disruptive, but I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. If I may also offer one word, that is agile. So I think for both the public and private sector, apply the agile approach when it comes to these technology innovation and revolution. And Alex, to your point, technology just moves too fast for you to plan 3, 5, 10 years ahead. So grab those opportunities and start to do something. So let's give a big round of applause to our panelists. Let's continue this very exciting topic, and every one of us will live in a smarter city going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.